Discord. It's an app designed by and for terminally online gamers. What could possibly go wrong? Yes, sadly, despite Discord's near ubiquitous use these days, this community text and voice chat service is probably one of the most infamous apps out there when it comes to user misconduct. I mean, it's literally impossible to go a week without somebody on Discord being exposed for grooming or some dark and disturbing confession being leaked from a private chat log on there. But this kind of stuff really only scratches the surface when it comes to Discord degeneracy. From a political candidate arrested for grooming and kidnapping a 12-year-old girl, to a military serviceman allegedly sharing confidential government documents to a Discord community, to a monstrous killer sharing gruesome photos of his victim to the app, these are Discord's criminally accused. Today's video is sponsored by Keeps, and to begin the ad, let's look at my hair from some old videos back in 2020. Yeah, your boy was losing hair and losing it fast. I didn't want to go bald, so I decided to do something about my hair loss, and I got started with Keeps, and the results have been pretty insane. Here's me at 6 months after starting Keeps, a year after starting, almost 2 years after starting, and then there's me now, just over 3 years after starting Keeps, and I gotta say, your boy's looking pretty good. Keeps offers generic versions of the 2 FDA-approved hair loss products at a can't-beat price, and best of all, you skip the trip to the doctor's office and pharmacy. Keeps will set you up with a prescriber online and ship your prescription right to your front door, and in 4 to 6 months, you should start seeing results. Look, if you're a guy out there that's having some anxiety about hair loss, there's no better time than now to start Keeps. Hair loss stops with Keeps. You guys can go to www.keeps.com/wavy to take advantage of their special offer. Big thanks to Keeps for sponsoring. Our first Discord degenerate is a young military serviceman accused of leaking confidential government documents to a Discord server called Thug Shakers Central. Meet Jack Teixeira. 21 years old at the time of this story taking place, Jack was very much online and spent a good deal of time gaming, playing Halo and Call of Duty with friends that he had met on Discord. Online, Jack went under the username Jack the Dripper. Jack's interest in Call of Duty in particular isn't surprising, as the young man comes from a family with a military background. Jack would also take the military career path, as he joined the Massachusetts National Guard immediately upon graduating high school. He served in the 102nd Intelligence Wing at Otis Air National Guard Base, and he was somewhat successful at this venture, even getting promoted to the rank of Airman First Class, and was on the fast track to even higher positions. But in the case of Jack Teixeira, despite this promising military career he had going on, he couldn't seem to get away from his edgier online activity. Teixeira has been described as right-leaning and conservative in his beliefs, and online he would often associate with many right-leaning, edgy gamer types, if you know what I'm saying. Which brings us to a Discord server created by Jack and his associates to discuss their interests. In October of 2022, Jack and several of his online friends would create a now infamous Discord server known as Thug Shakers Central. This server gets its name from a dance move that's performed in homosexual pornography. However, despite the name of the server, it wasn't chock full of gay porn. Rather, it was filled with the cantankerous online antics engaged in by Jack and his buddies. Thug Shakers Central has been described by the media as a place where Jack and his friends, quote, shared their love for guns, racist memes, and video games. More specifically though, Thug Shakers Central was a place where Jack would allegedly share confidential government documents. See, Jack was reportedly using Thug Shaker as a repository to post military documents that he had allegedly stolen using his clearance at the military base. Doing this for what seems like no other reason than to just impress his friends. These documents were said to have contained information regarding the ongoing Ukraine war, with specifics regarding the Ukrainian troops and military vulnerabilities. It's stuff that the US military wanted to keep confidential, as, you know, they didn't want the Russians to get this information. From what's known, Thug Shakers Central had about 24 active members during the time of these leaks, and surprisingly, over the 4-month period of Jack allegedly leaking documents, none escaped the server. But eventually, one of these Thugshaker members would leak. This occurred when one of the confidential government documents was leaked to a Minecraft Discord server called Minecraft Earthmap. From here, they were spread around various facets of the internet, and some documents even made it onto Russian Telegram channels. By this point, the leak was somewhat public knowledge online, and even the mainstream media had heard about it. The New York Post would report on the story, and at this point, the United States government had taken notice of the leaks and began a formal investigation.
Mr. President, could you give an update on that leak investigation, the leaked documents from DOD?
I can't right now. There's a full-blown investigation going on, as you know, with the intelligence community and the Justice Department, and they're getting close.
After about a week, the feds claimed that they had tracked the origins of the leak to Jack Teixeira. More specifically, his online handles Jack the Dripper and Excalibur Effect. The young man would be tracked down and promptly arrested by the FBI on April 13th of 2023. Upon being taken into custody, he was charged with violating the Espionage Act as well as removal and retention of classified documents without authorization. He was facing a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison for the first charge and an additional 5 for the second. On June 15th, Jack was formally indicted and he was being held without bail. And the reason he wasn't given bond is because the courts felt like, well, I mean, this guy might have access to confidential government documents, so they deemed him a flight risk, thinking that if he got out of jail, he could potentially leak more out of spite. This young man is facing a mountain of evidence, and if found guilty, I could see a situation where Jack is possibly spending 10 years or more in prison for posting these things to Discord. But for now, we'll just have to see what happens to the Thugshaker Central Kingpin. When using the internet, services like Discord, or even in-game chat logs, a lot of the time folks get a little lax when it comes to their self-regulatory functions. You know, when you're online chatting anonymously, folks seem to think that there's never going to be any repercussions for the things that they say. Well, the individual in this story learned the hard way that that's not the case after very threatening messages that he issued online found their way on Discord, which inadvertently got the cops called on him. This is the story of Discord user and Minecraft player Falcon Warrior 920. Falcon Warrior, who also went by the online alias Dalton Barnhart, was 15 years old at the time of this story taking place. An avid gamer with somewhat of an edgy online streak, the teen was no stranger to posting incendiary messages to chat rooms online. In August of 2019, Falcon Warrior was playing Minecraft with a handful of anonymous players when some interesting dialogue started filling up the in-game chat. Unfortunately, no video recording of this interaction exists, but a now infamous screenshot does. This image shows a snippet of the in-game conversation between Falcon and other players in the server. So naturally, we're missing the entire conversation. It's impossible to say what was said before, but reading into this, you can kind of get a grasp on what the context was here. It appears the context is that Falcon had made some sort of disturbing joke or threat regarding gun violence prior to what we're seeing on screen here, and the anonymous players are expressing their distaste for his comments. Falcon says, "LOL, why do you care so much?" And then several anonymous players leave their remarks. "Open up, what's the joke? Playing around with that isn't a good idea, LOL. We got him, boys." SWAT crashes through your window. Probs could get you in some serious shit. It ain't a joke when it's a serious problem that people have to fear every day. He's right though, not a ha-ha kind of thing. Now, seeing the concern expressed by his fellow Minecraft server players, you might think that Falcon would capitulate and apologize for what he allegedly said, right? But no, in fact, he takes his alleged threats to the next level. Following the concerned comments left by these anonymous players, Falcon Warrior posted, "I, Dalton Barnhart, vow to bring my father's M15 to school and kill 7 people at minimum." Quite the ominous message, to say the least. I mean, where's the joke here? This just looks like a straight up threat. This disturbing chat log was screenshotted by the players and reposted to a Discord server surrounding this community, where other Minecraft players who were a part of it got to witness the threat as well. Given the tendency of genuinely violent offenders often masquerading behind a veil of irony, folks on this Discord weren't taking Dalton Barnhart's threat lightly, and and some members reported the screenshot to the FBI. The feds soon tracked down Falcon Warrior using their cyber sleuthing tactics, and that's when they discovered the individual behind the Falcon Warrior and Dalton Barnhart persona was a 15-year-old living in Volusia County, Florida. Being a minor, the individual's name has been sealed and the media isn't reporting on it, so I'll just refer to him as Falcon for the remainder of the story. Soon after being identified by the feds, local Florida deputies were dispatched to the young man's parents' home to make an arrest. This visit resulted in a confrontation between two officers, Falcon and his mother. The bulk of this interaction has been fortunately captured by police body camera and is available online to view. Upon being arrested for his Minecraft messages, Falcon claimed that his threats were nothing more than a joke, and this was a sentiment expressed by his mother as well.
He made a statement, a written threat to plan or to carry out a mass shooting.
But he's just a little kid playing a video game.
And all
That's
these kids
so
keep
far.
getting arrested. And that's why the FBI and the local law enforcement is spending so much time, because how do we know he's not going to be the kid from Parkland? He's not going to be the next kid, the kid that shot up Sandy Hook. We don't know that.
Regardless of his intention, issuing a message like this is a serious crime on its own because it's directly threatening the lives of others. The fact that he phrased it so specifically certainly didn't help him in the idea of this being a sort of edgy online joke. The police even asked the mother if there were guns in the house that he could hypothetically execute this plan with, and she said that, yeah, there's guns in the house.
Do you own a gun?
I have a gun, yes.
Okay, so he has hands and feet. He can grab your gun and go do something.
He would never do anything like that anyway.
We don't know. We don't know if...
No, but I know.
Falcon Warrior was charged with issuing threats of violence, which in the state of Florida is a second-degree felony. He was then detained and taken to a local juvenile detention facility to await court proceedings. Body cam footage of this interaction was uploaded to YouTube on August 19th of 2019, where it has since gone viral, garnering hundreds of thousands of views, and is another addition to the growing collection of people who have been arrested for issuing threats in Minecraft. Due to Falcon Warrior being a minor, information regarding further developments of his case have been sealed. Whatever the case, in the modern era with all of these smootings that have been going on, I really can't blame the police for being extra careful here, especially when you have a guy issuing such direct threats. Yeah, guys, don't issue threats in Minecraft literally or, metaphorically, because it's not going to end well. You watched the last video. The one guy got locked up for doing a similar thing on 4chan. When you think of a Discord criminal, the first thing that comes to mind for most people is a guy grooming minors on the app. Well, this next story involves that, but the perpetrator is a guy that was running for political office. This is the bizarre story of Nathan Larson. Nathan Larson is a man who had become infamous in 2020 after it was being reported that he had groomed and kidnapped a 12-year-old girl that he met on Discord. But this headline really only scratches the surface regarding the depraved insanity of this would-be politician. Before making headlines for grooming a minor, Nathan Larson was a somewhat well-known fringe political figure, running for office on numerous occasions in the state of Virginia. Nathan first ran for office in 2008 and almost immediately became infamous thanks to his radical beliefs and plans that he would enact if elected. Mr. Larson said that if he was elected, his intention was to dissolve the government as a whole, believing that the private sector would perform every role that the government did more efficiently. His plans included auctioning off infrastructure such as roads and bridges to private companies. He wanted to get rid of the military entirely in favor of private defense agencies, and of course he wanted to eliminate all taxes. Nathan Larson considered himself a libertarian, but he was mocked and ridiculed by people in his own party, them feeling like he was just a complete schizo nutjob. Larson's bizarre political stances were also accompanied with rash and psychotic behavior. Shortly before President Barack Obama was sworn into office, Nathan Larson sent an email to the Secret Service threatening to kill the president. This threat would earn Nathan Larson a felony charge and 16 months in prison. And this was pretty devastating for Nathan Larson because felons can't run for governmental office. However, this wasn't the end of the road for the man, because 7 years after getting this felony, the laws surrounding the rights of felons were amended in the state of Virginia, which restored his ability to run for office. After the law was amended, he would re-enter the political sphere and prove to be even more radical than he was before. Nathan Larson was now advocating for the legalization of child pornography, and he wanted to remove the 19th Amendment, which allowed women to vote. The man also openly identified as a white supremacist. He's really just checking off all the boxes here. Eventually, Larson would prove to be so crazy that he was formally kicked out of the Libertarian Party, which admittedly is like kind of difficult to do. They seem to be more of the chill, anything goes type of folks, you know what I'm saying? And after being banned from the party, this is where he starts taking his beliefs online and things start to get really nasty. In the mid to late 2010s, Larson would begin hosting a multitude of chat room websites such as soupy.org and incelapocalypse.today. These chat rooms served as a popular hub for radical right-wing individuals and self-described incels, which Nathan himself apparently identified as. Online, Nathan often referred to himself as a quote, hemophiliac rapist, and spoke of his sexual attraction to children. At some point, he even bragged about allegedly raping his ex-wife. Due to the man's history as a political candidate, some of his postings were spotlighted by mainstream media. The Huffington Post would discover his bizarre online activity and actually conducted an interview with the man, in which he directly admits that he was attracted to children. And when asked about a previous comment where he said that he wanted to sexually abuse his wife and daughter, he responds that these statements, quote, had a grain of truth to them. And this guy isn't all talk either. What you're about to find is that the words that he's saying, he's willing to back it up with actions. In mid-November of 2020, at the age of 40, Nathan Larson would begin speaking to a 12-year-old girl on Discord. The two chatted on this platform as well as Kick for a period of several weeks. During these exchanges, Larson claimed to be 25 years old. While grooming the child, he would pressure her to send sexually charged images to him. This was said to have occurred on several occasions. This horrifying situation would culminate in Nathan Larson convincing the girl to come with him to Virginia. On the night of December 13th, Nathan would travel to the girl's house and picked her up at about 2:30 in the morning. The following morning, the girl's parents discovered that their daughter was missing. Her laptop and bag were gone as well. The panicked family called police and reported their child missing. They also checked their Ring camera devices and noticed that a red pickup truck had stopped by the house at night. They would report the presence of the truck to police. This tip would eventually lead police to tracking Nathan and the girl down at an airport near Washington, D.C. And it was here that the man was arrested and the girl returned to her family. While she was returned physically unharmed, sadly, some damage may have been done, as investigators found signs that the girl was inappropriately touched at the airport. Upon being arrested, Nathan Larson's electronic devices were confiscated, and it was discovered that he possessed a vast amount of CP as well as photos of the victim. Some of them were even shared on his websites. Larson was indicted on 5 federal charges, which included kidnapping, child abduction, soliciting CP from a minor, and meeting a child with the intention of having sex. Nathan would plead not guilty and actually planned on representing himself in court. However, on September 18th of 2022, while still in jail awaiting trial, Nathan Larson died unexpectedly. The cause of death was eventually deemed to be suicide by self-starvation. Yes, unfortunately, this monster was never made to face trial. And I gotta be honest with you guys, if there's ever a person that needed life in prison, this guy needed life in prison. It goes without saying, it's extremely disturbing, sad, heart-wrenching, and devastating to know that people will abuse minors in this way. I can only hope that this 12-year-old victim receives the help that they need to process what was done to them, and that they can live as normal as a life as possible moving forward. This next story involves a 17-year-old girl who made friends with a 21-year-old man online, the two chatting frequently on Instagram and Discord. When the man in this situation wanted to escalate things to a relationship, the girl didn't reciprocate. Unable to handle rejection, this monstrous individual would show his true colors, resulting in a tragedy. This is the Bianca Devins story. In 2019, 17-year-old Bianca Devins from New York had a small yet growing social media presence. She was active particularly on 2 Instagram accounts where she posted various photos of herself to about 2,000 followers. While she was just getting started, the girl had a knack for social media, and she honestly preferred to engage with folks in the online world rather than IRL. Much of Bianca's social life was spent online. Described by some as an e-girl, the girl was said to have suffered from social anxiety and PTSD, which made seeking out friends in the real world difficult at times. As a result of this, Bianca spent a great deal of time using Discord and other community-based apps and forums to make friends. And online, Bianca had many friends. Due to the niche popularity of her e-girl Instagram content, many would often reach out, seeking a friendship. Which brings us to 21-year-old Brandon Clark. In early 2019, Bianca Devins was messaged by a man named Brandon Clark on Instagram. Their initial conversation was said to have sparked a friendship that blossomed over time to the point where the two would actually meet in real life, with Brandon even reportedly attending Bianca's high school graduation party. And as more time would pass, the frequency of these two meeting up in person would increase. But the more scrutiny that you apply to this relationship, and I say that extremely lightly, the more weird it is. It's been reported that Brandon would offer young Bianca drugs as a means of seeing her more consistently, almost like he was using drugs as leverage to get meetups with the girl. And as their intimacy grew, Brandon Clark wanted more and harbored hope that Bianca would be his dedicated girlfriend. Up to this point, they weren't officially a couple, but despite this, Brandon was said to have often referred to himself as her boyfriend even when Devin said otherwise. So you're starting to get a picture of a guy that's like kind of obsessed with this girl and she's, not really super interested. The exact nature of Brandon and Bianca's relationship has been highly disputed. Some have described it as, quote, a personally intimate one, with people claiming that the two had even met each other's families. However, other people say that the two had a complicated and problematic relationship. Whatever the case, any doubt regarding there was something amiss in the relationship of Brandon Clark and Bianca Devins would be snuffed out in July of 2019. As on the 14th of July, a tragedy would unfold that results in the death of Bianca Devins. On the evening of July 13th, 2019, Brandon and Bianca met up in person, and together with another friend from Discord named Alex, the trio attended a concert headlined by singer-songwriter Nicole Dollenganger. During this concert held in Queens, New York, it's said that Brandon became vexed after Bianca had allegedly kissed Alex during the show. Still under the delusion that Bianca was his girlfriend, this romantic advance towards the Alex person, it angered the man and he felt betrayed. However, despite his frustration regarding the matter, Brandon didn't take any immediate action, rather withdrew and brooded to himself for the remainder of the concert. Shortly after the concert had ended, Bianca Devins would actually reflect on this situation in Discord messages sent to an online friend. Is he still shy or talkative? Shy right now, but he smiled. Smoked. Ha ha ha. We held hands. My friend is so mad. He saw us kiss. I kissed him twice. And so after the show, this Alex person goes their separate ways and Bianca and Brandon leave together. And well, this wouldn't be just a short-term little thing that Brandon was upset about. It turned into a full-on argument. While there's no way to know exactly what was said in this argument, one might imagine that it involved Brandon unleashing his anger at Bianca regarding the concert kiss. It's thought that if such a conversation was had, that Bianca may have again rejected Brandon and set a boundary of them just being friends. Unable to accept this reality, Brandon would become enraged. This dispute would soon turn physical, when an incensed Brandon grabs a knife that he had hidden in his back seat and proceeded to stab Bianca Devins in the neck, killing her in the early morning hours of July 14th. The event that just transpired certainly paints Brandon Clark as an unhinged individual, but what he does next truly paints the depravity of himself. After the brutal killing of Bianca Devins, Brandon Clark would take photos of the massacred woman's corpse and post images of her bloodied body to a Discord community server frequented by Bianca. According to a Daily Mail report, one of the photos were accompanied with the message, quote, "Sorry fuckers, you're gonna have to find someone else to orbit." The man would continue the heartless celebration of his killing, going as far as to use Devon's own phone to take photos of her own body and post them to the Discord server under her Discord account, showing the stab wounds he had created with the text, "Damn, my neck hurts." Alongside the slew of posts made from Clark within this short span of time was a string of messages blaming Alex for her death, saying that if it wasn't because of this individual that Bianca would have made it home that night. And in the middle of all these messages, he urges people to subscribe to PewDiePie, which in this context was a morbid act of parroting words issued by mass killer Brenton Tarrant. Anyways, remember to subscribe to PewDiePie. Also, to the fuck Alex with the Chinese username, hope it was worth it. She was gonna go home today. The server that Brandon Clark was posting to had many active users at the time of the gruesome images being uploaded, and news of Bianca's killing would spread rapidly across the internet. This apparent murder would trend on Instagram with the hashtag #RipBianca going viral. Some online even coldly shared around the photos of the killing to sites like 4chan and Reddit, and while most would express their repulsion to people sharing these around, some depraved people goaded on the killer. Curiously though, as hours passed and this killing became more public knowledge online, Brandon's demeanor seemed to switch from braggadocious to more of like, what have I done? Sometime after the killing, various photos were posted to Instagram from Brandon, seemingly expressing regret for having perpetrated the act. These posts made it clear that he had driven out to a remote area and concealed her body under a tarp. The image has the caption, "I'm sorry, Bianca. Thanks to everyone who was good to me. I will miss you all. Here comes hell. It's redemption, right?" Around this time, Brandon would also change his Instagram account bio to display his own birth date and the date 7/14/2019. The obvious implication being that Brandon was prepared to take his own life. Whatever the case, the police had been notified dozens of times regarding the killing of Bianca Devins and were doing what they could to track down Brandon and hopefully find her body. Finding Brandon driving around without his plate number would have been somewhat of a difficult task, but bizarrely enough, locating the man would be made much easier thanks to Brandon himself. As at some point during the evening, Brandon would make a 911 call to law enforcement, informing them of what he was about to do. A quote from this call says, "My name is Brandon. The victim is Bianca Michelle Devins. I'm not going to stay on the phone for long because I still need to do the part of the murder." This 911 call made it possible for police to triangulate his location, which was just off of Post Street in Utica, New York. When police arrived, they found Brandon lying on the ground next to Bianca's body, the girl dead with Brandon still alive. When police approached the scene, Brandon reportedly grabbed his knife and began stabbing his own neck. Police managed to restrain and disarm him, and the killer was sent to a local hospital for emergency surgery, where he would survive, the man unable to escape the consequences of his actions. After recovering, he would face a criminal trial for the murder of Bianca Devins, who was buried several days after being found. The investigation determined that while the decision to kill Bianca wasn't seemingly premeditated, Clark's vehicle did contain items such as knives, ropes, and duct tape, which obviously suggested that the guy was just generally prepared to kill or maybe even kidnap people if he had to. Further searches of the man's computers revealed that he had at one point researched how to kill someone, and also how to find someone's carotid artery in their neck. Facing first-degree murder charges and life in prison, Brandon initially pled not guilty. But with his defense having a complicated trial in front of them, his plea would later be changed to guilty in February of 2020. After many delays due to the COVID-19 pandemic, eventually, Brandon Clark was given 25 years to life in prison in March of 2021. During sentencing, the man expressed remorse for his actions, Devins, though few have been willing to forgive him.
To apologize, how do you meaningfully apologize for doing something so horrible and so irreversible? And that's the worst part, is that I can't take it back. I want to, I wish I could. I would give my life in a heartbeat to Bianca if I could, and I can't. Every day I wake up and I wonder how she would have spent that day if she were still here.
The murder of Bianca Devins is significant for many reasons, but one of the more remarkable elements of it were how photos and evidence of the crime spread online before police had even gotten word of the actual killing. And this had some pretty disturbing implications in the sense that people were like gleefully sharing around photos of her dead body. As a result of this, lawmakers proposed Bianca's Law. The purpose of this proposed law was to make it a crime for someone to share the crime's victim online with the intent to degrade or humiliate said victim. After all, the murdered body of Bianca Devins was visible on Brandon Clark's Instagram profile for close to 24 hours before the website had finally taken it down. This law would pass and was put into effect by the state of New York in June of 2022. In addition, a lawsuit was filed against the police department responsible for this case, as during their investigation, gruesome photos of Bianca's body were logged into evidence, which was then leaked into the public domain. It's unknown if the family was ever able to get a settlement out of this case. Whatever the case, the murder of Bianca Devins remains as one of the most disturbing crimes involving Discord. Well, you made it to the end. Let me know what you guys thought about this video down below in the comments section, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. I want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.